The 1970s saw the beginning of what became known as progressive rock music. The decade also produced some pretty pretentious stuff: pseudo-classical keyboards, mountains of drum kits, guitars magnified through stacks of Marshall amplifiers, and high-pitched singers who spewed inscrutable lyrics. But a few individuals had a profound effect on the genre then and now. Peter Gabriel, for instance. In the early incarnation of the group Genesis, his compositions, textured sounds, and onstage flamboyance turned the rock show into a sophisticated multimedia event.
And the land lies down.
In 1974, the ambitious two-record concept album The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway marked the creative zenith of Peter Gabriel's work with Genesis. But Phil Collins would soon take over because for Gabriel, it was time to move on.
I was feeling part of the scenery. I walked right out of the machinery. My heart going boom, boom, boom.
Peter Gabriel's solo career received much critical acclaim. Commercially, however, his output was spotty. His first moderate success was this song, Salisbury Hill, from his 1977 solo debut. By the mid-'80s, he had a hit with Shock the Monkey, but it was Sledgehammer that made Gabriel a superstar.
I wanna be the sledgehammer.
Peter Gabriel was never satisfied with simple rock stardom, so he formed his own corporation. Real World is devoted to bridging the gap between high technology and multi-ethnic art. Musicians from remote parts of the world have spent time at his luxurious studio complex in Wiltshire, England. Human rights also became a personal crusade for Gabriel. His anti-apartheid song, Biko, became one of the biggest protest anthems of the 1980s.
Oh, Biko, Biko, because Biko.
It's been 10 years since Peter Gabriel recorded a studio album. Up was released this past week on Real World Records. True to form, Up is a global production recorded in Senegal, France, and aboard a boat on the Amazon.
My goal's not to travel so far in the unknown.
I had a place in Senegal at the time, and so we tried working out there, but actually I found it quite hard working in the heat, and we didn't have AC installed at that point, so I would sit there with a bag of ice on my head, water dripping down my t-shirt, and try and think. And then so we then took the operation to the Alps in France, and that worked much better because we'd be writing music in the morning, in the evening, and then out on the snow in the afternoon. But then we had an invitation to go down to the Amazon, and a friend had this fantastic boat with a studio on board. So I think, they weren't hugely relevant to the music that came out. These were just more interesting locations to start writing.
Conducive to creativity.
Yeah, and then I had this other idea for a project, which is just to send the album when completed to various groups around the world living on various rivers. And so you'd have up the Mississippi, up the Amazon, up the Ganges, and the local group would do their interpretation of it and send it back.
Some critics have called this one gloomy. I'm afraid I'm not sure I can agree with them. How do you respond to it?
Well, the songs were selected partly by what was finished first, and also what seemed to go together. And I noticed about 4 or 5 things were referring to death. Yet at the same time, to me, it feels quite a positive record, even though there are these sort of somber moods occasionally. And I think a lot of my music is about trying to find some sort of healing. I think in my own life, just by dealing with the difficult stuff, I've been given a sense of lightness. So I would say that the same could apply to the record. I know death is not normal pop music fodder, but in a way, it certainly left me lighter at the end of it, and I hope it will the listener.
It's just the way that you were tied in. Now there's no one home. I grieve for you.
I Grieve is a really powerful song.
Thank you. Well, that started really after I'd written Don't Give Up. I had no idea how far that song was going to go, and I had an extraordinary amount of feedback about how it had affected people.
Don't give up, you still have us.
You just had no idea, when you scratch away in the studio, where these songs are going to end up, how people are going to use them. But it was clear they were using them, or using that song, as an emotional tool. So I started thinking like that. Well, what in my record collection of other people's music do I use as emotional tools, and what am I missing? And I thought, well, I don't really have something that I want to send somebody to deal with grief, and maybe I should try writing that. And so that was the aim.
They say life carries on and on and on.
I think joyous music is a special thing and very hard to write. I mean, you do find it in African music, you do find it in religious music or gospel, I guess. But it's too often happy music is fake, and for me, far more sad and depressing than sad music that's genuinely wrestling with something real.
Mm. There's a tune called The Barry Williams Show.
Yeah.
Has a video directed by Sean Penn. Where did this come from? I mean, in the United States, actually, when we heard the words Barry Williams, at least when I did, the first thing I thought about was the actor who played Greg on the Brady Bunch, but that has nothing to do with him.
No, well, I mean, this is my ignorance. I don't know whether some subconscious Brady urges were lurking inside me, but I was certainly unaware of it. And I tried a few names at the time, and I was just trying to find something that sounded like it could be a TV show, so I don't know if that was my brain playing tricks on me. But Brady Bunch was not a big show in England. We were busy watching sort of Doctor Who and Monty Python. So it was news to me, but then when we did the video, Sean and I sat around and we thought it could be fun to get the real Barry Williams, as he is known over here.
So he is in the audience in the video.
He makes a cameo.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Before the show we calm them, we sympathize, we care, and the hostile folk we keep apart till the red light says on air. Did you see our leather lovers all tied up to the chair? Did you catch those child molesters? No one else goes there. What a show! Oh, what a show!
part of what you do when you write is you observe, and there's such a big part of our diet, which is TV, and this was, at the time of writing, a big phenomena on TV. And it made me think about lynch mob, about the Colosseum, and throwing a few Christians into the lions, and, you know, trading on human suffering.
Just one more Barry Williams show. We're gonna take you where you want to go. That's showtime.
Let's talk a little bit about the sounds on this, because every cut is something different. We're hearing all kinds of different things. And your father was a electronic engineer. Did that influence the way that you hear what you're doing?
I don't know that it influenced my love of sound, but I think my interest in sort of things scientific, and we'd always watch him in his workshop, which was this lovely wooden hut with every sort of tool imaginable, and he could take anything and take it apart and fix it and put it back together. And the only genes I got were the bits that allow me to take things apart. And so some of his skills I don't have, but I do have some of his interest. And I mean, he's still around, but obviously not working. He's 90, and he, with an Italian, developed a thing called Dial-Up Program, which was at the beginning of the 70s and was intended to provide entertainment, education on demand, electronic democracy, shopping. In fact, they did a sort of prototype in Cape Cod, and there was a woman in the delicatessen, I think, who would just get in front of the camera and tell you what new biscuits she got in that week. So it was all very simple and primitive, but to give you an idea of how long ago it was all interfaced through the rotary dial of an old telephone.
Oh, not the push-button technology?
No, push-button was dead new at that time.
You said you're someone who likes to take things apart and not sure if they ever get put back together again. Is it true that Sir George Martin was appalled at your studio habits? What are you like in his studio?
No, it wasn't to do with the habits or the cleanliness in my studio, but it was actually the process, because we were talking about ways people write. His method, I think, is a more traditional and probably far more efficient, but it's just to think of the thing and go straight for it. And my method is you throw a lot of mud on the wall and you sort of paint a spiral in it and try and gradually find a center. So there are a lot of paths, a lot of routes taken on the way home.
Lost my time, lost my place in sky blue.
For me, it is my process, and I've tried doing it the other way. And although I quite like working fast sometimes, and the sort of improvised energy that you get, I know now that I do better work if I do go down all these detours and take my time.
Some folks who have appeared on this program are appearing on your CD, the Blind Boys of Alabama.
Incredible.
Aren't they, though?
And I'd always thought about having some sort of male voices at the end of this song. And then when I got to know the Blind Boys, I couldn't think of anyone better to do it. You can hear these are voices that have been lived in. It's a rare quality, and they definitely, when they start bringing the harmonies in on Sky Blue, lifted up 1, 2, or 3 gears even, I think.
Over the years, we've been hearing some tantalizing little bits of information about a digital theme park in Barcelona that you and Laurie Anderson and Brian Eno have been planning. Now, is this a fantasy like those of us in radio have of the Shady Radio Rest Home, or is this something that is actually
Shady
coming?
Radio Rest Home. Now that sounds interesting.
Is this something that might really happen?
It's not active at the moment. It's still an active fantasy, although not currently an active project. And I don't rule it out. I mean, my attitude is as follows, that Hollywood has independent films to provide an alternative. Music business has sort of independent music-making record labels, but the sort of theme park business has no alternative. There is no sort of place for experimentation or radical ideas, and it's one of those things that I think has fed Brian, Laurie's, and my work, and there may be ways which we can begin doing things along those lines. And I'm also looking at an old railway line in Sardinia to see if there's a chance of converting that into sort of moving environmental piece.
You'll be touring the United States in November.
Yep.
Are we going to have to wait 10 more years for another album?
No, well, because one I think is already partly done. I'm intending actually to go back in the studio in the new year and try and do some more work on it. So I'm hoping within 12 to 18 there will be another studio album.
Peter Gabriel, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Peter Gabriel's new CD, Up, is on Real World Records. For more information on Peter Gabriel, including the full audio from this interview, as well as music samples, visit our website at npr.org. This is Weekend Edition from NPR News. I'm Leanne Hansen.